All I did was simply say, let's just go for it. Let's not hold anything back. Let's mobilize every truck we have. Let's pull in people who are friends of Convoy of Hope. Let's get them involved. And we just went for it. And maybe we started with a goal of maybe 50 trucks, then it went to 100, and in a short time it was 1,000.
It's been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated neighborhoods all over the Gulf Coast, including New Orleans, where 80% of the city was underwater. Nearly 1,400 people lost their lives. It was an overwhelming storm. Today we look back at that catastrophe and how hope made a difference.
No matter the obstacle you're facing, despite what the future looks like, hope is right around the corner. Welcome to Hope in Every Storm, a podcast presented by Convoy of Hope.
Hi there, I'm Ethan Forhetz.
I'm Lisa Rose. Hurricane Katrina is one of those events that I think everyone remembers. Seeing the heartbreaking images of people in low-lying New Orleans, many of them on top of their homes, desperate for rescue, with floodwater covering entire neighborhoods. Tens of thousands sought refuge in the Superdome. That, of course, became overwhelmed with the intense need.
Well, today we look back at that tragedy, not only to remember, but also to talk about the lessons learned from that historic disaster and the importance of hope. We are joined today by Hal Donaldson, president and founder of Convoy of Hope, an international aid organization that played a really big role in the response to Katrina. Hal, thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you, Ethan and Lisa. Thank you so much.
I know you spent a lot of time down in Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama following Hurricane Katrina. Whenever you see these images come back, here we are 20 years later, where does your mind go? Where do your memories go?
The organization, Convoy of Hope, was pretty small at the time. And we just said, let's pull out all the stops. Let's just see what we can accomplish. And I think when it was all said and done, we had sent down like 1,000 semi-truck loads of food and supplies. And probably was one of the lessons was that don't put a ceiling on what can be accomplished when people really put their minds and their hearts to it and they begin to pray.
One good thing about a hurricane, you know it's coming, so you can get prepared. But nothing could prepare people for what happened next.
That's right.
When those levees broke, and there was so much devastation. And I know you were on the ground a lot during that time. What was it like?
Convoy of Hope had prepared because we knew the hurricane was coming. Didn't know it was going to be as big as it was and widespread, but we had actually pulled our semi-trucks down in like a radius surrounding the area where we thought it was going to hit. And so we were ready to just go in right away. And just to see the devastation was mind-boggling, but also to see the desperation because people, they didn't see it coming. They didn't think it was going to be that big and that big of a deal. There were so many people that I wrapped my arms around and just said, hey, we love you, God loves you, and help is on the way.
Thank God for that.
Wow. How did you direct the team back then? Because you mentioned it was a much smaller team back then. We didn't have the resources that we are blessed with now at Convoy of Hope. So what did you say to the team about resources? How did you know that we were going to be able to get the resources and get them to the people who needed them at such a huge disaster?
The short answer is I didn't know. That's where faith comes in. And you just believe that as a person of faith, if you do what God's asking you to do, He is going to provide. And so all I did was simply say, let's just go for it. Let's not hold anything back. Let's mobilize every truck we have. Let's pull in people who are friends of Convoy of Hope. Let's get them involved. And we just went for it. And maybe we started with a goal of maybe 50 trucks, then it went to 100, and in a short time it was 1,000. One of the things I like to say is that at Convoy, we don't want to put a ceiling on what God can do. And I think there's something powerful about trying. Just being willing to go and to try and to do everything you can. And fortunately, people responded.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do when you start doing something and
right.
see what follows as a result. I know you know this, but Lisa Rose was down working as a journalist at the time. You traveled down to the New Orleans area, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi to cover the event. And down there, you really got an up-close and personal view of Convoy of Hope.
And I was familiar with it because it was a local organization from where I live, and we saw it in action. And let me tell you, it was the rock star of all the nonprofits down there. And I'm not just saying that, Hal. It was absolutely amazing. Our assignment as a news reporter and a photographer with me at the time was to go down there following 5 local churches who had been dispatched to their denominations or by their denominations. So we were talking about, we saw a lot of big mobile kitchens, and we saw a lot of chainsaw crews, and of course distribution in other areas too. But I think a lot of the people we talked to were a little disappointed with the response being fast and efficient. And but we were so anxious to get to Convoy's spot because we'd never actually seen them on the ground. And that was something else because it was such an efficient organization that the cars were just moving right through. And I might have seen it on its best day. I don't know. But I'm telling you, we did not get one negative response from the people who were on the ground, passing out so many things like water and food and clothing. It was like nonstop. And our responsibility was to talk to the people who were receiving that. But we also got to talk to the crew too. What do you tell people? Because we saw so many people who just looked hopeless.
Yeah.
What do you tell people when you see them on the ground like that, up close and personal, as you hand them a bottle of water?
I think a lot of it is not the words that you speak, but the actions, And so when you hand someone water when they have none, when you give them a plate of food when they have none, when they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their medicine and you give them a bag of ice, words are secondary. I think actions are primary. And that's certainly what we were doing, is just mobilizing churches and businesses and civic organizations, and they would say, well, we want to help, and we would mobilize them. And all I would do is I would wrap my arms around people. I literally would hug them and let them cry on my shoulder.
The warmth was tangible.
It was. But what gave me the license to do that was because we had already given them food and water and ice. I think actions speak louder than words in desperate situations, but the words are important. And just to whisper in people's ear that tomorrow is going to be better than today, and we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here to help you. We don't budget for disasters. Even today, 20 years later, we don't budget for disasters. We send out our team and we ask them, just go out, meet needs, reach out to hurting people, let them know that God loves them, and we'll worry about paying the bill later. And that's just worked very well for us for many, many years.
I'd say.
Obviously, Convoy gives out the tangible supplies that people need to sustain life. We give out food and water and hygiene items, baby supplies, all of the things that people need. But as I've gone through the line and seen people go through and following distributions, I get to talk to them a lot of the times on scene. I'll say, what do you think of this? And their response more often than not, what they get the most from our disaster responses is that somebody put that arm around their shoulder, that we traveled from Missouri or from Atlanta or from Sacramento, California to respond to their need, that they're seen and they're heard. Yes, they need the tangible supplies, but it's the hope that we're able to give them that, yes, tomorrow is going to be a better day. Speak a little bit to the importance of hope in what many times can feel like a hopeless situation.
I love what one of our team members says. He says that hope only matters if it gets there in time. And one of the things that Convoy of Hope has really made as a pillar to this organization is that we're going to move quickly. We're not going to allow days to pass before people know that we're right there beside them. And so we want to be first on the ground, and we want to be the last to leave. I think that's how you give people hope, is when they know that they're not alone and they can count on you. I can't tell you how many times through the years, thousands and thousands of times, when I've heard people say, I'm eating because of you. I'm drinking pure drinking water because of you. And they'll say it with tears in their eyes. So I think hope comes when you do what you say you're going to do, and you underpromise, overdeliver, and you operate at a high level of integrity. And that certainly has been Convoy's mantra for many, many years.
Well, Hal, talking about hope, we wanted to bring in one of the people who really got to experience the hope that Convoy of Hope was able to bring. So we're joined now by Pastor Doug McAllister of Journey Church in Slidell, Louisiana, right on the outskirts of New Orleans. He's been there for many, many years. There 20 years ago. I know you two met back then and have had a long relationship since. Doug, thanks for being here. We wanted to bring you in just to talk about this 20-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and give us Forhetz, your top thought memories of that as you think back to that now 20 years later.
Well, it is truly an honor to be with you all, especially good to see you again, Hal. And I think the biggest memory that I could bring today about Katrina is that moment of hopelessness when we knew we had lost everything, not only our church, but our home, our kids' schools, and our life evaporated overnight. And then I was making phone calls looking for help. And one of my friends said, maybe you should call Convoy. This is 20 years ago. I'd never heard of Convoy of Hope. But you make phone calls when you're desperate, right? So I called the number, and I told them who I was and what I needed. And they said, hold on, we'll put someone on the phone. And Kerry Kingsland came on the phone, and he said, hey, Doug, this is Kerry. What do you need? And I told him our story. You know, we were a church plant 10 years in. We were having 3 weekend services with about 1,400 people. And Katrina came through on August 29th of 2005 and wiped it all away. From one weekend, we were a thriving, large church. The next weekend, everything that we knew was gone. And we were standing in the middle of a empty parking lot looking for help. You know, there were thousands of people around us looking for help. When Kerry asked me, Doug, what can I do for you? I said, well, Kerry, we don't have any water. We don't have diapers. We have nothing. I mean, we're literally in the middle of the greatest crisis of our lives. And I'll never forget what Kerry said. He said, I'm on my way. I'll be there in 24 hours.
Wow.
And had he not shown up, that would have been fine because it gave me hope for the minute. But he was there within 24 hours. But not only him, but Convoy began rolling in trucks. And it was a lifeline. You know, it was not only was it hope for our church and our family, but our community. Over the next 30 days, we fed and cared for 2,000 cars a day came through our parking lot, and Convoy provided water and food and MREs and diapers and essentials. Within a week, our parking lot was an outdoor Costco. We had rows and rows and rows and stacks and stacks and stacks of goods, and the cars came from daylight to dark every day, and we loaded cars. So we turned our misery into ministry, but we could not have done that had it not been for Hal and for Convoy.
Pastor, could you take us back there when you had so many people coming to you? How did you convey that hope from Convoy of Hope? How did you convey that to the people not only in your church, but just community-wide? Your town was almost gone.
Well, we went door to door, and most people had evacuated, but by now they're coming home to kind of assess the damage, and everybody's house in Slidell was affected. Many were destroyed and gone, but everyone either took water or a tree or significant damage. So we went door to door in the neighborhoods, offering to help people get the trees off their house, or, you know, to help them clean up their yard, or just to kind of start the recovery process. But once we knew we had hope coming from Convoy, we began to spread the word, and we were doing it with handwritten signs, which is kind of funny that I think about it. You know, just a week before, everything was professional and printed, and now we're resorting to marks-a-lots and paper, and we're just posting them over town. If you need help, come to our church. And word got out quickly, you know, and the more people came, the more people they told. And for 30 days, you know, we lost count. Tens of thousands of people came through the lines. And, you know, it probably saved our church, and it probably saved many lives. We don't have any idea of any way of counting them, but I know Convoy is still a legend in Slidell. And Carrie's like a folk hero from mythology. Remember when Carrie Kingsland came? And we joke often. It's like, oh, Carrie Kingsland has like a superhero named like Peter Parker from the Stan Lee comic. So we pretend like he's Carrie Kingsland from Stan Lee's comics. He's a superhero. He descended, but not only did he come, but Hal came, and so many people came, from all over America came and just stood beside us. And, it's 20 years past, and we've since recovered, and our church is stronger now than ever before. But those first few months were harrowing. It was every day we wondered if we would survive till the next, but I think the lifeline came from you and from Convoy.
Hal, what do you think when you you hear this? 20 years later, he's still emotional about it because it made such a big impact on him and his community and his church.
Well, Pastor Doug is incredibly modest. He was heroic.
Yeah.
Day after day, month after month. And his people followed him. And where some people would have hopped in their car and driven away, Pastor Doug stayed, and he rallied his people. And as a result, people got the help that they need. Convoy was a supply chain of resources, but he did something we couldn't do. He mobilized the masses, the army of compassion. So Pastor Doug, I want to salute you today. Thank you for your courage. But my question really goes back to, how did you care for yourself, and how did you keep going through all of this?
Well, I was blessed with an incredible wife. We had 5 little kids at the time. Our oldest just started college. He was 18. And our youngest was 3 years old. So the storm took our home away. But a friend of ours loaned us a temporary house to stay in about an hour outside of town. And we purchased an RV about a month or two later when we were able to get transportation to an RV lot, and we parked the RV in Slidell and lived there. But really, my wife held us together. I'd be gone 12 hours a day, every day, just trying to hold things together. But she was my strength and my source, and she took care of our kids, and she helped us, maintain a family. Even there were 7 of us in a 1-bedroom RV, and that presents a lot of challenges when you have 7 people sharing 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom. But my wife will always be a hero to me, and she took good care of us and of me personally.
Pastor Doug, as we begin to wrap up, we wanted to ask you, I know you've already said a lot to Hal, but is there anything else you'd like to say to Hal Donaldson, the founder of Convoy of Hope, before we let you go?
Well, Hal, I am always impressed with what you have done. We know your story well now. We know it started at the back of your own pickup truck, and we know the story of your own father and the own tragedy that you lived through. And we always admire how you turned the worst thing in your life into a lifeline. And we're just trying to keep up with you, man. We're just trying to follow your lead. You inspired us. One of the reasons that we were able to start over was because of that man, Hal Donaldson, and we will forever be in his debt.
Pastor, one more question before we go. We asked Hal this question about the importance of hope in a situation like that, and what was. You're standing in Slidell, your church is destroyed, your kid's school is destroyed, your house is destroyed. How important is hope in a situation like that? Not just for you, but for all the people at your church, all of the people in your community. Somehow that hope had to get through, right?
Yeah. You never really know the value of hope until you've lost everything else. And then you realize hope is enough. You can start over if you have hope. Hebrews 11, faith is the evidence of things hoped for. And, when you have hope, you can rebuild, and the circumstances may not change overnight. And we struggled for 33 months after the storm to rebuild. We didn't have a building. So almost 3 years before we had a building to meet in again. But it's amazing how much you can do when you have hope.
Ethan and Lisa, when people ask you for a definition of selflessness,
Yeah.
we're looking at it.
Yeah.
This man sacrificed so much. His wife and his family sacrificed so much. And as a result of their sacrifice, look at all that's been multiplied, all the lives that have been touched through it. So we salute you today, Pastor Doug.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you to include my story. I appreciate the opportunity. And, I look back over the last 20 years, and I would not want to relive those Katrina months again, but I would not trade them for anything in the world, because God did something in me during that trial that probably never would have happened any other way. So I hope the Lord doesn't put me through it again. But I treasure what I brought from it.
Well, we would be honored to partner with you again, should it happen again.
Yes.
We'll be there for you, and I know you'll be there for your community. Pastor Doug McAllister from Slidell. Thank you, sir. Well, Hal, Pastor Doug's story is multiplied by millions of times, given the number of people the Convoy has served following disasters like that. When you get to hear those personal stories of how Convoy affected someone's life, and in that case, affected the lives of people all throughout the Gulf Coast, what does it do to you personally? What does it say to your heart?
It's incredibly fulfilling, but it's also a reminder that God wants to help people more than we do. He's just looking for people who will raise their hand and try. I think Convoy has been able to mobilize a lot of people, that army of compassion I was talking about, to just get out there and do what they can do. And my personal story is that after my father's death, I was only 12 years of age, people reached out to me. They didn't have a lot, but they gave my family what they could. And what a tremendous lesson, even today. Just give what you can, do what you can, because doing something is better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
I've heard that Hurricane Katrina delivered some lessons for Convoy of Hope itself. How did it affect the operation here?
We found ourselves receiving 8,000 phone calls a day.
Wow.
All right. We'd gone from dozens of phone calls to overnight 8,000.
How do you handle that?
We didn't handle it very well. And so we found ourselves having to set up phone banks and getting volunteers to answer the phones. And that's indicative of something, though. 8,000 people calling, asking what can they do to help people down there in the Gulf. And so for us, it was a reminder that there's a lot of hurting people, but there's also a lot of helping people who are willing to go out and do what they can do. And so I think that was really the beginning stages of Convoy believing for bigger things and began to really expand our vision. We had not been that involved in disaster response at that time. Some, but certainly not at that level. And so we learned to grow capacity. And that lesson continues to be learned today. Is our capacity a lot larger than it was 20 years ago? Yes, it is. A lot larger. But we're always building capacity because you never know when the next Katrina will happen. And when you look back over the last 20 years, there have been some major disasters, Haiti, the tsunami, and more. And Convoy, for each disaster, I found that Convoy of Hope was more ready than we were before.
Wow. And what about personally? Did Katrina actually affect you personally?
Anytime you see death and destruction at that level, it has an effect on you. I've traveled all over the world. I've seen a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. I guess maybe in the early days when I was much younger, I tried to explain why people were suffering and why people are going through hard times. And now I no longer try to explain it. I just say, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get busy and help people the best we can and leave those kind of questions to other people. Our job, we've been raised up by God to help people, and that needs to be our focus. I think that's one thing it did for me, is just it gave me laser focus. I think the other thing it did, it reminded me of just the generosity of people. They want to entrust their resources to an organization they can trust. And so let's become an organization that's so trustworthy that people feel like they can give us their resources and trust their resources to us. That was another lesson I think I learned. Third lesson would be on a personal level is to be grateful for what I have. It's very easy to be a grumbler when things don't go exactly right. But unless you've been through a Katrina or a tsunami or a Haiti earthquake, you don't know what suffering really is. And so I think it's made me even more grateful personally.
Wow, this has been a great conversation. I'm thrilled to be part of it. Hal, thanks for being with us. Hal Donaldson,
Good to be
the
with you.
founder and president of Convoy of Hope, organization doing incredible work, more than 300 million people served and counting, right?
And counting.
And counting.
That's right.
Thanks for being with us to
to be
remember
with you. Thank you.
Katrina. And Convoy of Hope, of course, continues to be ready to respond to disasters when they strike, whether it's another hurricane or wildfires or flooding or earthquakes or even war. You can know that Convoy of Hope is prepared to offer tangible help and hope.
And we want you to be ready too, because you never know when disaster will strike. We offer a free disaster preparedness guide at convoyofhope.org/prepare, and we would love for you to download it so you can be ready if disaster strikes.
Thank you for being with us today for Hope in Every Storm. We'll see you next time.